Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the meeting of the full Cape Cod Commission. It's Thursday, June 21st, 2012. It's 3 p.m. and we're at the 1st District Courthouse here, Assembly of Delegates Chamber in Barnstable, Massachusetts. And what I would ask first, and I've been approached by a member who would like to take a little bit of our time for a very kind of a somber, Austin, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Austin Knight. I'm from Provincetown, and I bring you sad news. Last evening, Roz Garfield, who was a member of the commission here for many years and was the town moderator for Provincetown for 18 years, passed away. So, Mr. Chairman, if we can just have a moment of silence in memory of Roz, I would appreciate that. I'm sure others would also. Thank you.
Thank you. I would ask our secretary to call the roll.
Yeah, I guess this is my last bite of the apple in this clerkship, whatever. Barnstable, Roydern Richardson.
Present.
Bourne, Michael Blanton.
Present.
Brewster, Elizabeth Taylor, present. Chatham is vacant. Richard Roy for Dennis.
Present.
Eastham, Joy Brookshire. Falmouth is vacant. Harwich, Robert Bradley. Mashpee, Ernest Virgilio.
Present.
Orleans, Leonard Short.
Present.
Provincetown, Austin Knight.
Present.
Sandwich, Joanne O'Keefe.
Present.
Truro, Peter Graham.
Here.
Wellfleet, Roger Putnam.
Here.
Yarmouth, John McCormick Jr.
Here.
County Commissioner Mary Pat Flynn. Minority Representative John Harris. Native American Representative vacant. Governor's appointee Herb Olson. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Barely got a quorum, but we got it.
Good. Next agenda item is public comment. I don't see anyone out there, so we will continue with the next agenda item, which is the Executive Director's report, and in the absence of Mr. Neswicki, I believe he's in Boston, Patty Daly will give us just a brief overview of some of the activities and things that we need to be aware of.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to give you a brief update on our wastewater efforts. As many of you know, our Executive Director, Paul Neswicki, has been visiting with all of the boards of selectmen across the Cape. I believe he has maybe 4 towns left to go, so he's almost concluded that effort. And he's also almost concluded also his Saturday afternoon meetings to talk about wastewater with any interested members of the community that show up at those meetings. So those are wrapping up. We continue to work at the staff level on the wastewater MVP, which is a multivariate tool that will help communities to make planning decisions around wastewater, and continue to also work on the regional wastewater management plan, which we intend to have done by the end of the year.
Thank you. And at this juncture, the agenda item is Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy, and Leslie Richardson is up. Please proceed.
Thank you and good afternoon. For the record, my name is Leslie Richardson. I'm the Chief Economic Development Officer for the Cape Cod Commission. And I'm here today to present the annual report of the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy. The strategy itself was developed in 2009, and we are obligated to do an annual report and send it to the U.S. Department of Commerce Economic Development Administration on each year. So that's what this is. And just to give you a quick introduction to the SEDS. The SEDS falls under the Cape Cod Commission Act and under the Regional Policy Plan. It incorporates the goals, the economic development goals of the Regional Policy Plan, sets out a vision for the region, and then also outlines the economic development planning, research, priority projects, and town technical assistance projects that are going to be done that relate to economic development by the Cape Cod Commission. So what is the CEDS? It's both a process and a plan. We do the CEDS in order to build consensus among stakeholders in the community that relate to economic development and to expand collaboration amongst those stakeholders. We do it to focus our regional resources on particular projects so that we can move them forward more quickly, and then also as a method of evaluating that progress. And finally, we do it to attract investment to the region. The planning process this year was revolved around the Smarter Cape Summit. That involved 7 working groups that met from January through April. And then the Smarter Cape Summit had breakout sessions that were each associated with one of those working groups, and the speakers for the breakout sessions were selected by the working groups, as well as a specific priority project that they felt was needed for that area to move forward in the future. So the summit was the 14th and 15th and was very successful with over 400 registrants. And then the CEDS workshop took place on May 22nd, which focused specifically on the regional priority projects, and I'll explain that as we go. So the CEDS plan, what is included in the plan? The vision and goals adopted by the RPP, a background on the regional economy, an annual work plan for the Economic Development Department, a regional priority project update, and a local priority project list. So the vision and goals. The vision is a CEDS vision in particular, but is related directly to the vision set forth or the growth policy set forth in the RPP. The goals are specific to the RPP, are mirrored in the CEDS. So they're low impact and compatible development, a balanced economy, regional income growth, and infrastructure capacity. The background gives you a little bit of a flavor for what is going on in the region in terms of demographics and economic statistics. So it's a description of the regional economy. We also go over distress criteria that are identified by the Economic Development Administration. We look at the balanced economy benchmarks that were developed by the Commission, and we look at the data by town that was also compiled by the Commission. And then this year we did a business survey, so those results are included in this section as well. So a quick summary of some of the findings in that section. As many of you know, our population declined slightly. We're at 216,000 now. That's our estimate for the year, for the current year. And our summer population is approximately, or just under 3 times that size estimated. We're more highly educated and an older population than average in the US or in Massachusetts. We have 3 dominant sectors. Healthcare is the largest, followed by retail and accommodation and food service. We have lower than average wages relative to both Massachusetts and the United States. And 92% of our firms employ 20 or less people. The distress criteria that the EDA looks at primarily are unemployment and median income. The region has generally lower unemployment and higher median income than the US or than the US. However, there are census blocks within the Cape that have lower employment, have higher unemployment, I should say, and lower median wages. So those are considered distressed areas. The other distress criteria that fit with the guidelines of the EDA are military realignment, susceptibility to natural disasters, and natural resource depletion in the case of fisheries. Our balanced economy benchmarks show us a few things about the economy. We're less seasonal than we used to be, but we're still heavily dependent on our core industries. We have the economy broken down into emerging, core, and traditional industries. And the emerging industries are much larger in Massachusetts than they are in Cape Cod, but we're growing. Still a small business economy, but growth is highest among the large businesses. So in recent years, we've seen more 100 or more employee businesses growing. That's not an addition of a lot of businesses, but their growth rate is higher than that of smaller businesses. We've seen a loss of lower income populations. And then our regional income benchmarks that look at what kind of money is coming into our economy show strong growth in employment, even though we've had a recession, but flat growth in wages, unfortunately, and a decline in gross regional product. Town tables show the differences between the towns on the Cape. Barnstable is the largest town in size, but Yarmouth is the most densely populated. Sandwich has the largest household size and family size, and the second highest average household income, the highest being Chatham. Sandwich also has the highest percentage of households that are families, whereas Provincetown has the least. Dennis and Falmouth have the highest number of second homes, whereas Wellfleet and Truro have the highest share of second homes. So there's the gross number versus the percentage of all of the homes in the town. Barnstable and Yarmouth earn most of the room occupancy tax, followed by Chatham and Provincetown. And then the business survey that we did this year was a collaborative effort between the Cape Cod Commission, the Cape Cod Chamber of Commerce, the Yarmouth Chamber of Commerce, Falmouth EDIC, the Community Development Partnership. We worked with the Donahue Center, and we also collaborated with the Cape and Plymouth Business Magazine. We had a statistically valid sample. We issued the survey twice, once using a mailing to all businesses on the Cape that directed them to an electronic survey site. And then the second time it was using the local chambers of commerce mailing lists to send out an email to all the businesses that were their members with a link to the electronic site. And in both cases, we got a statistically valid sample. And some of the findings that were consistent across both of those were that 94% of our businesses are independent. Over half of our businesses are family-owned, and a third are sole proprietors. Only 5% expect to reduce employment over the next year. 60% have off-Cape customer base, which means they're exporters. It can either mean that they serve tourists who come here, or they actually send their product or services off-Cape. Almost half use personal savings as a source of capital, and 29% use personal credit cards for capital. The concerns that most of them have are relative to the cost of health insurance, energy, and real estate. The SEDS work plan, again, this is the work plan that dictates what the Economic Development Department does and what we do in partnership with the rest of the departments at the Commission, because we can't do it all. We do economic development planning, which includes we're trying to put together an economic development district designation that would be from the Economic Development Administration and would provide us with the ability to apply for grants for anywhere on Cape Cod, whether or not they're a distressed area. We do research, public outreach, data dissemination. We have, now we have, I think, 21 regional priority projects, and we also provide direct local technical assistance to towns. Oops, excuse me. So under planning, we coordinate the SEDS implementation, and then we're trying to get EDD status, which I mentioned. In terms of data dissemination, we have the Stats Cape Cod website, and we have the benchmarks that we've developed that are on that website, as well as town tables, and a profile of the county of Barnstable, as well as any other county in the United States. Then we have a set of priority projects that we actually lead. And then there's the reset projects, the town technical assistance projects, which this year will be in Sandwich. So the regional priority projects for this year. We decided this year to put our projects into two categories, active projects and listed projects. The active projects are those projects that the commission and its partners will be working on over the next year. The listed projects are still part of the SEDS, but they probably won't be the focus of our efforts this year, but they're still eligible for EDA funding. Only the projects that are listed in the SEDS, only regional priority projects in the SEDS are eligible for EDA funding, so that's why it's important to keep them in there even if we're not working on them this particular year. The following projects resulted from the Smarter Cape Summit. Smarter Cape Village Certification Program, a Smarter Cape Marketing Plan was proposed, an Educational Clearinghouse was proposed, an Integrated Resources Plan was proposed, Regional Umbrella Services System, which is something that Open Cape has been advocating and is actually something that the county is I think, adopted. And then the Smarter Cape Healthcare Group, they really pulled together an excellent group of people for that working group, but they didn't come up with a specific project. They came up with a series of areas that they wanted to continue collaboration on. So these projects, plus the ones that we considered active projects, were all prioritized using a prioritization grid that compared each project to each other project. So you had to pick, project A versus project B versus project C, and so on and so forth. And that's what we did on May 22nd when we brought all the stakeholders together for the SEDS. And as a result, this list is a prioritized list of regional priority projects. So the top priority is the Canal Area Study, looking at ways of improving traffic efficiency and getting, people over the canal more easily. Wastewater and economic centers was tied with an intelligent transportation plan. Smarter Cape Initiative Strategic Information Office was the third. Regional Finance Board, which has come out of the Regional Redevelopment Authority Priority Project. Entrepreneurship, Capital Access and Training was the fifth, and that was tied with Integrated Resources Plan and the Smarter Cape Marketing Plan. 6 was the Energy Demand Reduction, 7 was Educational Clearinghouse, and 8 was the Smarter Village Certification Program. So that's the order in which we'll be working on those projects. The local priority projects that are in the SEDS are updated every 2 years, and the towns that submitted projects were Barnstable, Dennis, Harwich, and Sandwich, and they ranged in type. Barnstable proposed a Hyannis Arts Center. Dennis proposed a whole series of sidewalks and traffic safety improvements, park improvements, and then the Dennisport wastewater improvements. Harwich proposed harbor infrastructure improvements, a center for arts and culture, and then the East Harwich wastewater infrastructure. Sandwich proposed Sandwich Village improvements and a bathhouse. None of these projects have actually been proposed, have been taken to the next step and have proposals put together for the EDA on them. So in conclusion, the EDC endorsed this SEDS annual report on the 7th. Today, I'm hoping that the commission will approve it, and then the next step is to actually mail it to the U.S. Economic Development Administration for their certification. And so by doing that, we basically stay in good standing to apply for further funds from EDA. We have received 2 rounds of funding from EDA for a planning grant as a result of the SEDS, and we hope to apply for a 3rd year this coming summer. And we're also looking at a disaster relief opportunity that the EDA has offered to see if we can use that to support the Strategic Information Office. So with that, thank you very much, and I hope you'll see your way to approving the SEDS.
Thank you. Are you up for some questions?
Absolutely.
Great. I have the first question is, the document you're suggesting we approve, is this document that ends with,
An appendix, I believe.
yes, that's the end of the document? There was something else printed on the other side of it. That's not part of it, right?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I mean, there are appendices to the document that
Maybe the monthly meeting agenda?
yeah, that include all the monthly meeting agendas, and then
Okay.
there's a list of stakeholders as well, and I can't remember what I think there are 3 appendices.
So which ones go to the feds for certification?
All of it.
Okay, all right. So any questions from the membership? Yes, Joanne O'Keefe.
Leslie, I'd like to compliment you on your work. I've been watching it very closely, and your whole initiative has been steady, moving forward, and I'm grateful for all of the information that I get from there and the constant updates. We've had 2 milestones, though, that I can see in the last year, which is we have seen the rededication of the airport. Both of these are in transportation. Mm-hmm. And the second one just slipped my mind. Not Tom Cahare's thing, but, well, anyway, with transportation, how do you see that being incorporated, and that bikes will be part of, and how that contributes to, the economic situation for the Cape, and also for the regionalization for the Cape?
I think that we have incorporated some transportation projects with the canal project and the intelligent transportation plan, but some RPAs actually have a much closer tie between their SEDS and their transportation improvement program, and that's something that we will probably look at when we do the 5-year update of the plan and try and integrate this more closely with the regional transportation plan as well as the TIP, and have TIP projects be priority projects as well, so that we can receive EDA funding for them in addition to transportation funding. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Mr. Knight.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My general statement that I make almost every year, and I'm glad to see that the population was in there, that it unfortunately decreased when you talk about year-round population. But if we looked at that same number and we went into seasonal population from the 1900s to current, those numbers would be astronomically different.
Yes.
And that pressure that it puts on the municipalities and Cape Cod as a whole, as the town, is enormous. And that, to me, has to be totally emphasized at all times, even under the economic part, because the future needs of the Cape are driven dramatically so by that seasonal change. And that is what we have to constantly challenge everyone that's possible to help accommodate our needs. And thank you for the report. Again, it's good, but I would be mistaken if I did not make that comment. Thank you.
Ms. Taylor.
Thank you again for the wonderful work that's reflected in this report. I have a question about something that seems to be coming up a number of our subcommittee meetings, is how we treat competition. And if you go to Chapter 2, page 6, it talks about the economic pie, so to speak, and about the fact that business ownership really impacts that a lot, that locally owned businesses retain and circulate money within this economic pie to a greater degree than non-local businesses that naturally draw their profits back to their home office location and are more likely to use non-local suppliers of goods and services. Being that as it may, are we going to be able to start actually taking that into account when we make decisions? Is it going to become a part of the RPP that we say maybe that this big box store does not belong here because it will negatively affect our local economy and our local businesses? I mean, are we going to be able to actually incorporate that into how we make decisions? To just put it as a benefits and detriments section, I think, does this whole report a disservice. I think we need to incorporate more of this into our actual thinking when we make decisions on applications that come to the commission.
I think it's an important issue. We put together a myth and fact paper on this very issue, particularly formula businesses versus local businesses.
Right, not necessarily just big box stores, but any
Right.
formula business, yeah.
And we did find a lot of evidence that supports the value of locally owned businesses to a local economy. And I would encourage all of the members, and I can have that distributed to the members if they'd like, to review that. We will be looking at the minimum performance standards for the economic section. We do on a regular basis, and we will again, I hope, be bringing them to the commission, and which time that becomes your decision as to whether those are minimum performance standards or best development practices or just something that you consider under benefits and detriments. But I hope that you do consider those factors.
Yeah, because if I may continue, with the tourist economy, as Mr. Knight just noted, being a major important part of our survival here, I guess we have to think about why people come here. Are they coming here because we have box stores that have beaches on either side, or because Cape Cod actually looks and feels different? And are we going to be looking at different towns and giving them different types of support? Because some towns may not want any formula stores in their period, but they may not be able to prevent them. Is there a way that you can work with individual towns about what the look and feel is that they want to establish or retain or regain, so that we can keep that part of our pie? Because as a tourist attraction, we are obviously in direct competition with every other tourist economy on the Cape, off Cape that has beaches accompanying it. And so is there a way that the commission can bring grants or money in to help the towns?
Well, I think we can certainly provide technical assistance. And we have not provided direct technical assistance, but I have presented to the town of Wellfleet had a forum when they were considering whether or not to do a formula business bylaw. Dennis has also had me in when they were considering doing a formula business bylaw, which both towns, I believe, did pass. And that's the standard way of dealing with this issue, is for towns to do a bylaw.
Okay, through the chair, just one more comment. Does the commission have technical assistance to help small businesses maintain their viability or get started? Because that's a big deal if you want to have a small business on the Cape and you want to maintain a distinct identity and get started with something new or different that will fit in with the tourist economy. Obviously, money and startup is a big part of that. So does the commission get involved with that for technical advice, working with SBA, Small Business Administration, to attract funds, or do we help at all?
We do indirectly. We focus more on economic development than business development. But we do work with organizations like the Community Development Partnership, which does business development. They work directly with small businesses to help them start up, to help them continue going. They provide loans, they provide technical assistance. and I'm on the board of that organization. And we also work with the Chamber of Commerce, which has a sister agency, Coastal Community Capital, that similarly provides assistance to businesses. We try and work on sort of the frame in which the economy sits and making sure that the infrastructure is strong, that we have, Open Cape, for example, is being built so that we can have better broadband capacity for small businesses, for home businesses, to encourage entrepreneurship on Cape Cod, that kind of thing. So we do it more indirectly than directly working with small businesses.
Thank you very much.
Other questions, comments? Yes, Mr. Cormack.
Leslie, I had a question about, I'm hiding behind the post here. I had a question about the stretching of the vacation period. Is it significant now? I know that it seems to me there's more and more business in what they call the shoulder seasons, and I think that at least up in Hyannis, the Cape Cod is a year-round destination for people.
We have some data on rooms tax that we graphed, and that still shows that, the 2 core months in the summer, July and August, are the biggest months. But it does show that there's there's shoulder season activity. And that's been an initiative by the commission, in the past, and then by the chamber to advance through special, festivals and programs. And I think it's been overall successful. People don't tend to come in January, but there are a lot of activities at other times during the year that do generate income.
Yes, Mary Pat.
Yes, thank you. Leslie, is there a specific distribution list of this document that the towns might be on, or someone within a town, or a planning department or agency?
In the past, we've sent out hard copies to the towns. What we were planning to do this year was to have it on our website and send notifications to all the stakeholders that have participated in the SEDS, so that they can have access to the document and be able to download pieces of it for grants or for other purposes. So it's widely available, and we are going to send out a notification to all the stakeholders, which includes towns, regional agencies that deal with economic development.
That's good, and I'm glad to hear that. I think that this document is loaded with information. There's an enormous amount of data in here that every town could benefit from having, particularly if they have an economic development group or committee, or even their planning or zoning. There's just so much information here that can be helpful to the towns in doing their future planning. I heard someone say to me the other day that, isn't it interesting that we still don't have big chain stores, box retail, and what have we done to actually create bylaws or do something very specific that would determine whether or not we have them in the future? And I thought this document can help with that as well.
Yeah, and I would say also that I'm available at any time to go to any towns and speak on this. I put together a presentation for the May 22nd SEDS meeting on all of the statistics that are in there, and I'd be happy to present it at any of your towns if there's interest.
Further questions or comments? Seeing none, do you have a motion there that you could frame for us, or would you like me to frame it?
I don't have a motion, but basically it would be to approve the SEDS as presented for the commission to forward on to the Economic Development Administration for their certification.
I knew you had one in you. Okay, thank you very much. Do I have a second? Moved and seconded. Further discussion? Seeing none, we will vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? So moved. Thank you very much, and congratulations, all the good work. I know you put a lot of hours into this, so thank you, Leslie. Okay. The next agenda item will be the solid waste update, and Patty Daly, pray proceed.
Oh, there we go. Patty Daly, Deputy Director, Cape Cod Commission. I want to mention that with me this afternoon are Mike McGuire from Barnstable County Cooperative Extension and Dave Quinn, who was hired on a county grant from the DEP to work with all the towns on waste reduction, to enhance recycling, promote pay-as-you-throw, and those kinds of programs. So I think they're going to say a couple of words when I'm done with my overview of municipal solid waste. And I try and check in with the commission about once a year and to let you know where we're at with this. It's a lot of background information here, assuming that folks who might be watching it on cable aren't familiar with the whole background. So one might ask, how did the Cape Cod Commission get involved in solid waste anyway? It's in our enabling legislation. One of the functions of the commission is to further adequate capital public facilities, including those for solid waste. So we've taken that mandate from the state legislature, and incorporated it into our Cape Cod Regional Policy Plan. And the primary goal in the RPP is really to reduce waste by enhancing reduction, recycling, composting, with really setting a goal to try and get 60% of the waste out of the waste stream before it gets landfilled or incinerated. It also happens to be, topically, a piece of the SEDS, one of the priority projects, so waste minimization. We've taken to calling it shorthand a zero waste priority project for the region. And I think where the SEDS kind of takes it a little further is treating waste as an asset that might create opportunities for entrepreneurs to find ways of taking those beneficial pieces of the waste stream and making money out of them. Oops, sorry. A little bit of background. We have 14 towns on the Cape with long-term contracts with CMAS, the waste-to-energy facility at Covanta. We generate currently about 80,000 tons per year. That was more like 100,000 tons per year before the recession. So we've seen a significant decline in the amount of waste that we're generating. Our current tip fees at CMAS range between $18, which the only town that has that excellent fee is the town of Wellfleet. And the rest of the towns are about $37.50 per ton. So those on the current market are excellent tip fees. In the aggregate, it's about $6 million a year that the Cape Towns are spending to dispose of waste. And our current 20-year contracts with CMAS expire either on December 31st, 2014 or January 1st, 2015. A couple other things about our municipal solid waste. Bourne, the 15th town, owns and operates its own landfill. They had been in discussions with us about taking some of the Cape's waste in their landfill. However, they just signed or negotiated a long-term disposal contract with CMAS to take the bottom ash from that facility. So there is still some landfill capacity for MSW there, but it's going to be limited now based on the contract between Bourne and CMAS. Bourne, however, does have some land that is pre-permitted by the state to host some sort of innovative facilities out there. They just put out an RFP, I think, or an RFQ, and are looking through the responses now. But I think we can look to Bourne in the long term to be doing some kind of innovative, exciting technologies that might provide some options for the rest of the Cape Towns going forward. Hauling is essentially either by truck or rail. The Outer Cape communities are truck hauling directly from their transfer stations to CMAS. Barnstable and Yarmouth, and now Dennis, this is an old map, so Dennis has joined the Yarmouth rail haul transfer station. So those 3 towns are going out of Yarmouth by rail to CMAS. And then the Upper Cape towns, Sandwich, Mashpee, and Falmouth, rail haul also, but they go through the Upper Cape transfer station, which is at the Mass Military Reservation. And I just thought this is kind of a neat map. People don't normally know we have these rail haul transfer stations, but there is one in Yarmouth, and there is one, as I said, at the Military Reservation for the Upper Cape. So knowing that our contracts were expiring in 2015, and because CMAS had put out on the street an MOU a few years ago, asking the towns to kind of re-up and extend their contracts, and in the meantime, pay more per year for their tons between now and the expiration of our contracts, the Cape Cod Solid Waste Contract Advisory Committee was formed by Barnstable County Commissioners, which is a great move. It's gotten all the towns together and allowed us to work together on our long-term disposal options. One of the first things that group did was hire CDM to do a couple things. One was to look at this MOU that CMAS had out on the street, and the second was to look at alternatives to CMAS. So we know our contracts are coming up. We've got an offer on the table from CMAS right now. What does that look like? And geez, what are our other alternatives kind of going forward? What CDM did find, actually, was that the MOU that CMAS had put out did not offer a good return on investment. So the fact that the towns are being asked to spend more than their $37.50 a ton in the next 5 years before their contract expired, those savings weren't realized in the long run based on the fees that CMAS was offering after 2015. So all of the towns said, thank you, now we're going to then explore our other options. These are the options that CDM came up with at the time, this is a couple of years ago. One is to go back to CMAS. The Bourne landfill, again, was on the table at the time, prior to the ash disposal negotiation. There are some other facilities in Massachusetts and New England that we looked at. We looked at out-of-state rail haul, where out-of-state tip fees are going to be very low, but the cost of getting the waste there, we have since discovered, might be prohibitive, particularly where whoever gets the contractor or ends up taking the haul piece would probably have to purchase a lot of infrastructure containers to be moving the waste back and forth. So those costs have ended up looking pretty prohibitive. There's a facility in New Bedford, Crapo Hill. It's just a great facility, excellent reputation, but not really enough disposal capacity for our towns. And then Future Technologies, everybody's interested, but there was nothing either permitted or in the construction phase that was going to be ready for 2015. So we felt that those two options are probably off the table. So that brings us to where we are today. After the CDM study, we hired John Giorgio of Kopelman and Page. He's counsel, his firm is counsel to many of the Cape towns. So John's been advising the Solid Waste Advisory Committee since the CDM study. About a year and a half ago, we issued a request for expressions of interest. And that just asked vendors, would you be interested in handling our waste? It did not ask for specific price proposals. It simply said, what generally would you be willing to offer us? Again, casting the net wide for alternatives. And that was nationally advertised. Since then, we've had some verbal negotiations with a couple of the respondents, one being Waste Management, another being E.L. Harvey. It's a firm out of Westboro. We have not sat down and talked with CMAS in quite some time. The last time we spoke with them, they wanted a 90-day exclusive negotiating period, and the group felt that it was not in our interest to cut out our alternatives yet. that we needed to continue to look at those. So that's what's happened up till the last month or so. Going forward, we're going to issue a request for quotations, and this time we are going to ask for price quotes. That's going to be an open solicitation, and we're hoping by mid-August to get some responses back to that. We will negotiate contract terms with the chosen bidders based on the feedback we get from the Solid Waste Advisory Committee, and then we will present to the towns some options for signing contracts individually with the long-term disposal facilities. So that's where we're at. I think the towns are pretty excited to be seeing kind of the end of the tunnel on this, hopefully. Some towns that we're working with off Cape, their contracts expire in 2014, at the end of 2014. So I think this will give them enough time to get to a special town meeting anyway and get authorization to move, assuming we're able to do some strong negotiating by the end of the summer and early fall. So the benefits of having this group together have been that 14 towns haven't separately had to go out and do this all on their own. And I think the biggest benefit really has been increasing our negotiating leverage by having 60, 80, 100,000, 120,000 tons of waste per year to work with. And I just wanted to mention the county continues through Elaine Davis to do joint procurement for solid waste hauling and construction and demolition debris. And in '09 and '10, there was $100,000 savings to the towns. That has continued in the years the following. So I think we're trying to hit it on every level we can, but the county's been a very big player in all that. And with that, I think I will turn it over to our other partner in the county at the Cooperative Extension, Mike McGuire and Dave Quinn. And I'll answer questions after if you have any.
Thanks, Patty. Good afternoon. It's great to be here. I feel like I presented to many boards in the county. I haven't met most of you, though, so I think I'll go back and introduce myself just so you know who I am and what department I'm from. So my name's Mike McGuire. I've worked for the county for almost 14 years now. I started as an AmeriCorps member many years ago in the first year of the program. Worked as a grant writer and grant manager for the county, and for the past 4 years I've worked for the Cooperative Extension as the household hazardous waste and water quality agent for the extension. So my responsibilities with the county and for the extension are to coordinate 5 different regional programs. If you've been to a household hazardous waste collection, I was responsible for operating it. And we partner with all the towns and go out in regional bids for the hazardous waste vendor and do those kind of things. I also operate the mercury collection program for the county. We collect more mercury per capita than pretty much any county in the country, and it's been a really successful program. We collect road and marine flares, which contain perchlorate, provide free sharps containers to the towns, and pay for the disposal of sharps containers. And also we initiated an unwanted medication disposal program where we dispose of, we assist towns. There's a tricky federal law that we have to abide by, but we assist towns with the disposal of unwanted medications within their towns from residents. So you get the drift. I deal with hazardous waste and things that we don't want in our trash. So this has been a wonderful partnership with the commission. I love partnering with sister agencies. It's been outstanding to work with Patty. When this proposal first came to be, both the commission and extension recognized that the towns needed some assistance with some of the solid waste things that were going on, so an idea was hatched to make a proposal to Mass DEP to apply for a grant to have someone who was a regional waste reduction coordinator. That was the title that was given to the position. And Patty and I had discussed the management and decided that since I do work on a daily basis with most of the Department of Public Works and transfer station folks, it would make sense for me to probably supervise this person. So we went through the hiring process. We got some really excellent candidates, and we're lucky enough to have Dave Quinn be available. Dave actually just graduated from Tufts with his master's program in planning, right? So he has also worked with Chatham as a recycling coordinator there, assisted them with recycling. So he has background on the Cape. He has solid waste background and a planning background. It was a great mesh for us. So I think that's probably enough out of me. I'm glad that I get to speak with you today. I'm happy to answer any of your questions, but I'd just like Dave to introduce himself and talk to you about what he's doing, because the idea is we want to bring resources to the towns on the Cape and make sure they're available, or they understand what grants are available to them, what's going on from a state level that could affect Cape towns here, and bring models that are working in other communities here to try to find the most efficient and effective way to deal with our solid waste. So.
So thank you. Thanks, Patty, for having me here to introduce myself. Like Mike mentioned, my name is David Quinn. So I think I'll start off by just mentioning what I've been doing so far in the 2 months that I've been here. So I think it is an exciting time in dealing with the issue of solid waste on the Cape. I think Patty talked about the increase in the tipping fees that all towns are trying to address, but I think it also presents a really great opportunity for towns to rethink how they're dealing with solid waste. So a number of towns on the Cape have formed solid waste advisory committees that are tasked with looking into these very issues to really think about what their costs are, what their tonnages are for waste, what are their recycling rates, and to reach out to other communities and try to figure out what the best model is for them. So since I've been here, I've had a chance to meet with all 15 towns, the solid waste managers in each of the towns, and basically do a little bit of a needs assessment, sit down and talk to them about what's going on and what I can do to help. So as Mike mentioned, my position's funded through DEP. DEP has a program of municipal assistance coordinators throughout the state. So there's 6 municipal assistance coordinators throughout the state that are assigned to different regions, and they work with the communities and provide technical assistance for the municipalities in their region. And so I communicate with them on a day-to-day basis and get information about what's worked in other parts of the state. So that's a good resource that I'm bringing to the towns on the Cape that are looking into these issues, because as you know, pay-as-you-throw is a solution that's being proposed as a possible solution. It's a unit-based approach to getting rid of trash, so residents would be purchasing bags to place their trash in, and it provides a direct economic incentive for them to reduce their trash and recycle more. And so it's a change that a lot of towns are looking at, and throughout Massachusetts, about 130 of the communities have already switched to this method, so there's a lot of good information out there about what's worked, what hasn't worked, and the implementation process and how to get the message out to the public. So it's been great to meet everyone on the Cape. I look forward to meeting you all and working with you all, and I'm also happy to take any questions as well.
Thank you all. Anyone with questions for our 3 presenters here? Yes, Ms. O'Keefe.
Go ahead, John.
Very nice presentation, Patty. I live in the town of Sandwich, and I was happy to hear you talk about pay-as-you-throw. I think that our Board of Selectmen that initiated pay-as-you-throw need a huge attaboy and lady, because of the fact that when a town transitions, they never know whether it's going to fall on the good side or the bad side. And fortunately for us, and we have a great Paul Tilton heads up our DPW, and he worked long and hard to ensure that the implementation of pay-as-you-throw would be a benefit to whether you were a seasonal resident, or whether you were visiting, or you had a second home in Sandwich, and it has been extremely successful and has reduced solid waste. I don't have the statistics on it, but I'm sure that you have. And knowing that, you want to, how many towns do participate in pay-as-you-throw, and has the outcome been the same for the other communities on Cape Cod?
I'll let Dave talk too, but last I spoke to Paul Tilton, Sandwich is up to 40% recycling, which is fabulous. If we are looking at a doubling of our tip fees, I think it's really imperative that towns take a serious look at pay-as-you-throw. The other thing is, we don't know what kind of a long-term contract we might be looking at next. Our current contracts have a guaranteed annual tonnage, and we have seen tonnages going down since a recession. Now, CMAS hasn't enforced that, so to the extent that a town had guaranteed a certain amount of tonnage, but they don't provide it, CMAS has a contractual ability to say, you've got to pay me for all that tonnage anyway. So I have heard it advised that towns might want to look at pay-as-you-throw now, so they have a better idea what kind of tonnage they might be looking at in the long term for those contracts. That being said, we are telling the vendors in our RFQ that we do not want a guaranteed annual tonnage clause in our contracts. Yeah. And I don't know if you have any other input.
Yeah. So just one brief point to add about pay-as-you-throw. Sandwiches, it's great to see Sandwich going to pay-as-you-throw, and Paul Tilton's been excellent in spending some time and talking to the other towns that are considering it. So I think it's great that we have that, one town on the Cape that has already made that switch. But around the state, like I mentioned, there's over 130 communities that have gone that route. And on average, they see a reduction in their trash tonnage by 35 to 45%. So it's been overwhelmingly successful. So I think it's a good model. Certainly every town's different, so there's no one-size-fits-all solution. There's many different variations of it. But in general, the idea of having a unit-based approach to solid waste has been effective. Sure.
Microphone, please.
Yes, proceed.
And I just wanted to finish up is that the residents also in Sandwich seem to be very pleased that they have learned to recycle where they were sort of, hedging before.
Right.
And there's been many comments from residents that are very pleased with themselves that they have learned to recycle and feel better about taking care of the environment, just on the plus side.
Great.
Questions? Yes. Elizabeth.
I have a number of questions. First of all, on the hazardous collection, which occurs, I forget if it's 2 or 4 times a year, is there any reason that local transfer stations can't accept that and stockpile it? Because I just think of people who have material they want to get rid of, and if they have to wait until it's hazardous collection day, it's going to go into the regular trash, or sit in the garage and you have a possibility of a spill. Is there any way you can get local transfer stations to accept it year-round and then take it over to?
I'm glad you asked that question. It's a common, well, not a common question, but it is one that comes up occasionally. So there are facilities throughout the state that are permitted to hold household hazardous waste on a regular basis. So there's a lot of pieces to this. I think the short answer is there are 2 towns on the Cape that have conditional permits to hold very small quantities, but they're not quantities that could be accepted openly. You couldn't just say, it's for basically when a town gets in a situation where they accept something comes in that they didn't know that they were going to take, and it just gets left. And they have a conditional permit to hold those things. The process of citing a facility that's approved to do that is fairly expensive, and it's one that, quite frankly, is not very popular in many towns because of the potential for the liability, the cost of doing it, and then all the other operational costs of maintaining them. It is something that we've looked into. My predecessor, Marilyn Lopes, had looked into this. I found some files from the mid-1990s. She again looked into it in the early 2000s. I haven't revisited it, but I know it's something that if there was enough community demand, if we were hearing it from the community, we wanted to do it, I would seriously investigate. But it would come at significant cost and significant permitting to allow the towns to do it. And And I agree with you. Our statistics are there about, we have about, last year, 4,200 vehicles representing about 6,000 households came through our collections. So I feel like this is something that people usually only come to once every 5, 6, 7 years. It's something that people accumulate things and occasionally will come to them. So what portion of residents we're capturing, I do have statistics on that, and I agree with you. We're certainly not capturing everyone. People are frustrated and certainly disposing of things improperly. That percent, and that's nationwide. That's not just a Cape-specific thing. What percentage of folks? I think that's a much more difficult thing to determine. But if that's something that you think is a priority, or you think that communities would be willing to invest the money into, I would be interested in exploring it. I just know the associated costs are 10 or more times what it costs to run all the collections on Cape each year. So,
Just another question on that specifically. Even if the local transfer stations could collect them and then each weekend take them to another site that was able to hold them for a longer period, and then they went off, off Cape once a month or something. But I think we're failing to capture a lot. And if people can't make it to the collection days that are set up, it sits around the house, and I myself have a whole bunch at home, and if I can't get it to that collection day, it's just going to sit there.
I agree with you, and I certainly don't. I'm not under the illusion that this is the silver bullet and that we have the optimum situation. But what I can tell you is that in the past few years, I've had communities that have a budget of $10,000 to deal with household hazardous waste, and they've cut it from their budget and zeroed it out. Okay, so for me to go to a town and say, hey, would you like to go through a $50,000 permitting these aren't real numbers, I'm just estimating, a very expensive permitting process, and then build a facility that costs a few $100,000. I don't know if the communities are there. And as far as stockpiling and transporting, there are regulations on what quantity, how you transport, how you placard, how much you pay folks that are doing that. So I wholeheartedly agree with you. There are models that exist in other communities that have cited year-round hazardous waste collection facilities, and it's something the county could certainly investigate and perhaps do. But my read on it is if we have a lot of communities here that can't come up with $10,000 to deal with this, I don't know if it's if we're going to be able to take that next step or not. So.
Okay, thank you. I have one pay-as-you-throw question and then one for Patty. If we ended up mandating recycling, mandating pay-as-you-throw, where does that leave, large businesses that just put everything in a dumpster? Are we subsidizing the trash that is not separated out? I mean, where does that end up going? If all the towns are doing pay-as-you-throw and they're doing recycling, where do these massive amounts of unrecycled trash end up?
So you're talking about the commercial trash?
Right.
So that is primarily handled by private haulers, and under pay-as-you-throw it still would be. So the pay-as-you-throw program would be geared towards residents. It wouldn't mandate that businesses be required to participate in that program. I think what you'd want to caution with implementing pay-as-you-throw is to have, if there's dumpsters behind businesses and public places that that they put locks on them and make sure that they're controlling what's going in there so that residents wouldn't be putting their own household waste in them. But no, pay-as-you-throw wouldn't be applicable to private businesses. They would still be able to select the hauler that they wanted to take their trash.
That sort of means that we are subsidizing them then, because our town is paying for a certain tonnage per year, and if we recycle like crazy, 40 or 50%, and then you get in a massive amount of tonnage that's unrecycled, then we're subsidizing that. And how about large places that are residential, I don't want to pinpoint Ocean Edge, but I will mention them. It's the only group I can think of right now, but they have, hundreds of apartments and condos, and everybody puts their trash in certain areas. What happens with setups like that?
Yeah, typically, large residences over a certain number of households wouldn't be participating in that program. So again, they would act, as a commercial entity where they would, they'd be hiring their own private hauler to come take their trash as well.
So there's no talk of mandating recycling
You could.
from everybody?
Yeah,
We're going to pay for it somehow, and
Right.
I don't want to have to subsidize somebody who isn't willing to recycle.
Yeah, I think, that's, that's more of a, you could have a recycling bylaw, mandating recycling. Many towns do. I think that's more of an enforcement issue. I don't know, Pat, if you have anything more to add on that front, but.
Sure.
Yeah.
One of the things we'd like to do while Dave's here is put together a model bylaw that deals with the private hauling and commercial waste. And some towns already have these bylaws in place, but again, it's a matter of enforcement that say, for example, in the Upper Cape, the 3 towns that go to the Upper Cape transfer station, private haulers are supposed to be bringing their waste to the Upper Cape transfer station because there's a put or pay with the rail company. So there's a certain amount of tonnage that's supposed to be going through that facility. However, if there's a local disposal option that's less expensive, you may see commercial haulers going straight there. So ideally, if all of the Cape towns had the same type of bylaw around private haulers being required to go through public transfer stations, you'd level the playing field, and that would partially deal with that issue. The fact that private dumpster trash, commercially hauled trash, is or isn't recycled does not mean there's a subsidy that you're paying out to them. All the towns are paying for is the trash that comes through their transfer station and they're delivering to CMAS right now. So to the extent a town can reduce that amount through recycling, your tip fees are going to be less because you've got less tonnage that you're delivering. The commercial guys are going to other places, or they're paying CMAS directly by the ton. So there's not really a subsidy there.
Well, as long as they're going other places and aren't coming to my transfer station, because if they are, and they used to.
For the most part, and I don't think too many towns are if they are accepting commercial waste, they're charging more for it for the ton.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Michael?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To Elizabeth's point, and Patty, you had stressed the importance of reducing that tonnage by implementing more and more recycling on a municipal level. That would help bring those numbers down, bring those amounts down. I had the interesting pleasure of accompanying the Cape Cod Selectmen and Councils Association, along with you as well, over to Nantucket to see their municipal operation. The Bourne Board of Selectmen had gone a few years prior to see some of their alternative technologies, and we've debated that and talked about that in our town forum. But I thought it was very interesting to see that Nantucket had embraced a mandatory recycling protocol for their town. And they managed and enforced that by instituting a practice where only clear plastic bags were accepted at the Nantucket landfill. The sorting staff could very easily see whether or not recycles were removed from the trash you were bringing to the floor or not. And it was very clear that if your clear plastic bags contained recycle items, those bags were given back to those residents to recycle and bring them back when they were appropriately packaged. The selectmen wholeheartedly endorsed this procedure and this protocol, and they did speak to the fact that it was somewhat uncomfortable and painful at first. But a few years later, the change has been embraced. The town has encompassed this strategy, and the residents now wholeheartedly embrace this practice. Their kids are growing up, learning recycling from an early age, and can't understand why anybody wouldn't do that aggressively. So it's something I think that the 15 towns here on this side really ought to strongly start considering and thinking about.
I think to your and Joanne's point, if through the chair, but I think people do feel better when they recycle. Yeah. So it's just a change in the mindset.
Mr. McCormick.
I had a question about pay to throw. I know that some towns have instituted this, and supposedly it makes a difference, that there's a lot more stuff being recycled. Is this, how many towns do that?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, so on Cape Cod right now, Sandwich is the only town that has implemented a pay-as-you-throw program. A number of other towns are considering it, but they haven't implemented it yet. Across Massachusetts, again, there's over 130 of the communities that use the system. And so the way it works is that instead of paying for one flat price for the transfer station, you might pay a smaller sticker price, but then you'd pay for each bag that you had to throw away. So in Sandwich, for example, I believe it's $1.20 per bag. And so you have to go purchase the bags at your local hardware store, around town, different stores, and then you can only use those bags to throw trash away. So it just creates a direct economic incentive for the homeowner to reduce the trash that they're throwing away, and it creates an incentive to recycle. And so the studies have shown that it has worked really well. But that's the basic idea behind it. Want to add something? Sure.
I think since many of you are going to be talking with folks in your community about the term pay-as-you-throw may be I think it's a challenging term. I think people have a negative connotation to it, and especially in our region, and I'm not sure why. The way I think maybe it's better explained is pay for what you use. So you're only paying for the trash that you use, and the idea is when you have this model, you make recycling free. So for a person who comes in who has diverted the recyclables, which almost all of them are valuable commodities, so the town can sell white paper and they can sell glass and metals, and they can actually sell textiles. We had a workshop today. Textiles are, clothing and bedding. They can actually make money on that, which offsets the cost of them operating a transfer station. So if you as a resident live in a town and you want to, you can basically choose what method you're going to use to dispose of trash. If you really don't want to recycle and you're going to buy as many bags as you want and you don't care, you want to throw everything in a bag, then you're paying your share for acting that way. And everyone else in town isn't subsidizing. Say everyone pays $120 for a sticker, and you can throw whatever you want. You can go over to your neighbor's house and take all their trash and throw it away. That model worked before because, frankly, we had very, very low tipping fees. And now that that's going to change, we have an opportunity to have a real conversation about trash, because let's face it, I deal with trash every day. It's interesting to me. Most people live on in our communities, they really want to think about trash that much? Probably not. So let's take this opportunity. We know the tipping fees are going up, and let's have a conversation about how the old method, how we used to do it, and the new method, how we could do it, and how that has an economic impact on the town. And that's going to be Dave's job to talk about pay-as-you-throw. And towns don't have to go pay-as-you-throw. They can choose whatever method they like. But what we're getting from the state and what DEP is showing us and the data is showing us is if you take a program and you decide to implement a fee-based service where you're paying for the residents are paying for each bag they throw out, you're going to reduce your tonnage by anywhere from 30 to 40%, and you're going to increase your recycling around 30 to 40%. So if we negotiate new contracts with whoever ends up with that contract, it's important that we don't have a minimum tonnage that we have to deliver, but the outcome will be the town is paying less to get rid of their trash. They're going to be seeing the benefits of the commodities that they bring in, and the towns won't have to operate in the red dealing with trash services. And for those folks who don't like it, they can get a subscription hauler. And they can pay the fee to have a private hauler come to their house, or they can pay for each bag and can throw out whatever they want. And technically they can't, because there are state statutes that mandate, there is mandatory recycling in this state, but it's kind of like enforcing the speed limit. So, if everyone's breaking the law, then it makes it pretty difficult to enforce mandatory recycling. So it's baby steps first, but I do think that this is an important conversation to have, and if anybody in your community wants to talk about it or is feeling like there's, that there's some really negative aspects of it, talk to Dave. He has all the statistics, and that's why he's here. He's here to help the towns work through this. So.
Yes, Mayor Pat.
I happened to attend a forum last week on pay-as-you-throw, and the speakers were from Natick, Rentham, and Attleboro. And I think Attleboro has had pay-as-you-throw for about 14 years, but Natick, almost 24 years they've had pay-as-you-throw, which is pretty interesting when you think about it. And significant savings. They were able to show, in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, how much of a savings it is to a community if you use pay-as-you-throw and increase the recyclables. I think one thing that we would probably want to know more about is the marketability of the recyclables. And is there really a return? I think it's probably a fluctuating market, at least that's what they said, so it's not something you can really count on. But the upshot of it was that it's a big sell to a community. I know Sandwich worked on it for a long time, but it requires a lot of education, and I think that's where maybe Mark and David could help a lot, is helping towns put together some type of an education program that really works so that you can bring this out to community members. This was in Falmouth, and there were a lot of people who attended it. And in the beginning, the questions were very good, but toward the end, the people who are really anti-pay-as-you-throw could have dominated the evening, and there are people out there who are not willing to think like that. The other thing is how towns are currently paying for trash, whether it's on the tax rate already or whether it's an additional charge. So that's something too, is what are they paying for now, and how will that affect what they pay for with pay-as-you-throw?
And that's a great point, because Falmouth and Bourne and part of Provincetown, they do have curbside pickup. So if that's in your tax base and you're paying, the way to look at it is the most expensive trash besides hazardous waste. And we're talking about municipal solid waste. The most expensive thing to get rid of is trash. So even if, let's say you're paying $65 a ton for your trash to dispose of it, and you can get rid of your recyclables for free, or they're charging you $10 a ton, or whatever it is, because the market does fluctuate, you're still saving that $65 or $55 a ton for disposal. So everything that's diverted is a reduced cost to that town for curbside. And I appreciate your comments, because trash apparently builds up very strong feelings in people, and because they don't want to see transfer stations shut down, they don't want to see certain things happen because they feel like it's the fibers and the threads of the community. We appreciate that, and that's why Dave is here. I think that it's great to have vocal participants who want to talk about the different aspects of what what should and shouldn't happen in a town, but those voices shouldn't drown out data and practicality, and I think that we need to and this is why Dave is here. I want the towns to use him, and we want the towns to use him to provide the hard statistics that say, if you do X, Y, and Z, and you have a community like this, we have 130 other examples in the Commonwealth, this is what will likely happen. And I think the environmental discussion about recycling is important. We've beaten that drum for a long time. Right now, it's really about economics, and we need to talk about the economics of this, because the current system is costing the towns a significant amount of money. So.
Yes, Leonard.
I was, this past weekend, went to the quote-unquote dump. It's not a transfer station in my estimation.
Okay.
In Orleans, and talked with one of the attendants there. I was very carefully putting the cardboard and the plastic and the glass and so on and so forth, and I noticed that he was taking the green, brown, and white glass and throwing them all into one container. And I said to him, why? I thought you separated the colors from the white, or from the clear. He said, no, it's 0, it doesn't make any difference. I think our problem is that there is very, very little incentive for people to do something about separating their trash. And you go over to the compactor, and there's more cardboard in the compactor than there is in the cardboard recycling bin. Now, we know this stuff doesn't have a lot of economic value today. At least that's what I'm told by these people at the dump. And I will continue to call it the dump until I see a change made in this. You know, I grew up in a family where I had a grandmother who went to the dump twice a year. All the newspapers were used for heat. The cans were all, tops and bottoms were taken out and they were flattened and they were put into a shopping bag. And that's what she really, and the glass and the cans were really the only things that she took to the dump. Now, I understand this is the 40s and 50s, and it was very different then than it is today. There was a lot more recycled glass in those days. Bottles were recycled, and milk bottles and soda bottles. The changes have got to take place. There's got to be some sort of a mandatory penalty for people who do not recycle. I lived in Japan for a number of years, and I had a son who was more recently living in Japan. I was back in the early 50s and mid-50s, and they were recycling then very, very assiduously. My son, when he was there in the early 2000s, everything is recycled, even the caps on bottles. We take bottle caps and throw them into the trash. They're not recycled here. I don't understand that. It's still plastic.
Right. And I wholeheartedly agree with your the sentiment about and frustration with the inefficiencies. And I don't want to go to, we could maybe have a conversation later about this, but what I will briefly say is it's a frustrating process to try to, from a transfer station's point of view, they try to operate a transfer station where they're dealing with 17, 20 different vendors who are dealing with commodities. And so glass may be hot 1 month or 1 year, and they want you to separate the clear from the brown from the green, and they'll pay you for the clear, and you only have to pay $10 a ton for the brown, and the green you have to pay $60. And it's this constant moving target. And then to try to take that and communicate it to residents in some way where they're saying, well, we want you to separate newspapers this year, but not next year because we're not making any money on them. But we want your white paper, but not next year. It's too confusing, and it sends a message to our residents that it's a mess. And that isn't really the case. So what I'm trying to get at is recyclables are, when they're separated for our purposes from an economic standpoint, there's always value to them because they're not being landfilled or incinerated, and there's value to them because the town doesn't have to pay the maximum amount to dispose of them. But I wholeheartedly agree with you that it is disheartening when you go, you spend hours. How many hours a year do you spend separating your recyclables, and you go to a transfer station and everything you've sorted just gets tossed into one bin? That's a frustrating process. I don't want to see residents being frustrated by that or thinking that the responsible thing isn't happening. And there's a term called single stream recycling, and it's something that you're going to see. Some communities have a form of it. It's not quite single stream, where all of your recyclables get put together and they have a MRF, or a material separation plant, where it all gets mechanically separated by a machine. And that that's an economy of scale and efficiencies. So you generally get people to recycle more things if they only have to have a trash can and a recycle can. And you just go to the transfer station, you're in and out, quickly dump it, and then let technology sort for you. So that's another thing that may come to many of the communities here. And that will also require explanation to all of our residents so that they know that it isn't a waste of time or money, and that these things are still, recycling is still happening efficiently. So that will be something that we're going to use Dave's position to explain to communities.
Yes, Joanne.
What you said is taking out the trash isn't as the same as when we were kids. And the death of landfills, I mean, there was a lifespan for landfills, but the need to close those because of what was being emitted or seeped into the groundwater caused illnesses in communities. I lived in a community where the sticker was only $10. The sticker and sandwich has gone down from $110 to $55. So it's just a matter of necessity that in this 21st century that every town, 109 towns, have looked at and changed to pay as you throw. And the other communities are going to have to find a way that they just can't, sing that song to the dump, dump, dump anymore, which is probably what you sang. But it's a realistic, exorbitant cost if you live in certain towns, and those towns that did not have a landfill or a dump where your father would call you up and say, honey, come up and take my trash, and I would have to go up and get my father's trash because he didn't have a dump and I did, and I would do that for him, which is probably against the law. So what I'm saying is that the history of landfill and taking out the trash has changed to the 21st century, and everyone will have to face it. I do have one concern, though. I think that there has not been any clear legislation or streamline for private hauling. We have been talking about municipalities that may have done curbside or doesn't have curbside anymore and all of those things that you know about. But I think for the private haulers, and I think that battle that's going on, that some are not charged the same amount of money, I wish that debate would soon take place and have some parity in the trash hauling business.
Well, Patty and Dave and I have discussed trying to draft a model bylaw for haulers. Many communities have tried this, and there's a lot to it. So I don't think I'd promise that it's going to get implemented, but I will say that is something that's going to be worked on, and we're going to attempt to develop it and see how far it will go. So.
Mr. Chairman, out of courtesy to my other members, I have to
Yes.
be leaving here at 4:30, and if we need a quorum issue, I need to provide that information now to you.
Thank you. I don't think we have a votable issue remaining, so are we finished with the comments and about the, okay. Jessica Rempel had an item that she wanted to quickly dispatch.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jessica Rempel, Regulatory Officer with the Cape Cod Commission, for the record. This is an item just for the subcommittee members from the Barnstable Comprehensive Wastewater Management Plan. Public hearing and subcommittee meeting minutes were sent to you for your review, and I'm just looking for a vote on approval on both the public hearing meeting minutes and the subcommittee meeting minutes.
Move they be accepted.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. A vote from the subcommittee. In favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, so moved.
Great,
Or
thank you.
approved, Yep. Okay, other member comments? I would like to...
Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry, hold on. Yes. Roger.
I'm not sure that all of you are aware, but this is Steve's last day to put our minutes on tape and broadcast them for all the world to see, which I think is a very valuable thing. But more important, Steve has been doing this for about 15 years. I've known him, man and boy, for some length of time, and I want to thank him very much for the detail that he has portrayed for this and the Assembly over the years. Thank you, Steve.
Other comments? Yes, Mr. Blanton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well said, Mr. Putnam. We will sorely miss Steve, and I do hope that he will be back next year or in the future. So we'll continue to work in that regard. I see shakes. Two matters also. One, I want to thank the Assembly of Delegates for passing the Bourne Growth Incentive Zone last evening. So that effort passed this body, now it's passed the Assembly, and it's going to be a very positive step forward for Bourne. So I want to thank the members of this body and that body for your work on passing that growth incentive zone for us in Bourne. And for those of you who are also undergoing the process, we wish you well with that as well, so that you can see the success that we hope to see. And second to last, we opened our Market Basket store to nearly capacity crowds the other day. So if you'd like to come see all the fine fare that Market Basket has to offer, it's at what I've heard to be fantastic pricing, please come to visit us in Bourne. And then lastly, as this body of executive leadership prepares to depart and the next body prepares to take these seats beginning next month, I want to congratulate the new incoming chairman, vice chairman, and secretary treasurer of the organization. And I know they'll do easily as good a job as we did. And I also want to thank my fellow members here that they've made this run at leadership far more doable. And I appreciate having worked with both of you this entire year. So thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to thank the present chair, vice chair, and secretary also for a wonderful job this past year. So moved.
Thank you all. It's been a privilege to serve. I love this commission, and it has a lot more hard work and good work to do in this coming year, and we've staffed to address it. So that's wonderful to see, and we'll be around. Any other comments? Call for a motion to adjourn. I think we have a motion and second. All in favor, say aye. 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 So moved.